Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting in just a moment. We apologize. We're about 2 minutes late here, but we are starting on the program, and we're going to be talking conservatives standing tall. We're going to be having a conversation about everything that matters to you, to younger students, to younger adults, to everyone in the middle, just everyone, about what's really going on, why it's important to be a conservative, why you are not alone, and what's happening, not just in the southern tier of New York, but everywhere. But I want to start this off again with something that I've recently been talking about, and this is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from March 31st of 1968. And Dr. Martin Luther King said, "And it may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, 'Wait on time.'" It's an important thought. It's a thought that I think we need to expand on, and we're going to be talking more about it very shortly. But before I do anything else, let me introduce you to all of our guests here. That happens to be Michael Woodward, who is the president of the SUNY Broome Republicans. He's also a founder of the organization. He's a friend of mine. He's helped me work with many of their projects over at SUNY Broome, and I'm happy to have him here. He's on the left of the camera, if you see, in the burgundy shirt and the cap. And then sitting next to him is John Lezak, who is the secretary of the SUNY Binghamton College Republicans, the vice president of the Turning Point USA chapter at Binghamton University. And I know he's a little bit washed out here. They both are. It's just the way we have our lights right now. This is a improving, growing system every time. So we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it better and right. And I know my mic is blowing out a little bit. I apologize for that. Before I let them say another word, because I'm gregarious, so we'll deal with that in a second. But I do want to mention, everyone, please remember. Oh, wait a minute. Where's my volume? Okay, sorry, it's checking my volume for a second, folks. I do want to mention that we have a phone line. You can call in. It is 607-242-1582. We can receive your text. We can receive your calls. We will put you on the program live so you can speak with us as well. We hope you're going to enjoy that. I know I'm going to enjoy that. And yes, I know there's a little bit of an echo, but don't worry about that. That's just because we have a lot of mics going here. With that said, I've talked way too much. So let me introduce you. First, Mike Woodward.
Hey, Mike. It's nice to be here. Now, I just want to clarify one thing, though. I am the founder of SUNY Broome Republicans. However, Morgan Phelps is the president this year. So just in case she hears that, I want to make sure that she's out there.
Okay. I haven't spoken to her. I haven't seen her at events. So
yeah,
that's my error, and I apologize for that. No meaning of disrespect to anybody out there.
Of course not.
And then, of course, John, please.
Yes. Hello, I'm John Lezak. I was here last week, if you may recognize me, and I'm back for another wonderful podcast. Great to be back.
All right. And everybody, please, we're checking this out. We're looking for your comments on YouTube. We're checking on Twitter. We'll be checking on Facebook as best as we can. So if you can't hear anything, if the volume's off or something, send us messages and we'll try and keep up with that as best we can. So let's jump right into this, guys. And I know I'm getting comments right now on Facebook on a couple of other stories that we're checking out. But conservatives standing tall. Big message that we want to get out to everyone. You are not alone. You are not the only conservatives out there, whether you're on a college campus, whether you're walking down the street, no matter where you are not the only Republican, the only conservative out there, no matter what the news media wants you to believe. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the quote that you started this stream off with is perfect. It is the people in the middle that need to understand this is the time to act. Things are only getting crazier. We need to stand tall as conservatives.
Oh, especially after this last week, absolutely. One thing about conservatives, and it's really not a bad thing, most of them just want to go to work, come home to their families, and that's what they want to do day by day. But the problem is the people on the left are not willing to just stand by and do the same thing. They're making, they're rabble rousers, and they're forcing us to have to actually mobilize.
Yeah, mobilizing is never a bad thing.
And it's not a bad thing, but it's come to the point where it's just getting ridiculous.
Well, yeah. We've seen a lot of ridiculous things happening. There was obviously Thursday, 2 weeks ago at Binghamton University. John, you were involved in that. Of
course.
You were mobbed
So
by
was I.
200 to 3.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, there was the event with Dr. Arthur Laffer. I know, Mike, you were there. And we saw another huge mob walk into Binghamton University, shut down the event when the man said hello. And
Yep.
I think he was
total
able
chaos.
to get 3 words out.
He made a good joke about the weather.
Yeah.
And they didn't
Yeah.
like that one apparently.
Apparently, talking about climate change, the weather is just forbidden, verboten, and that's it. And then we got just this Thursday, there was yet another protest by Plot.
Oh yeah.
And in each of these things, and I can't call them protests, because a protest, that's the First Amendment. That's protected, and that's a great thing.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And I think we need to make a very big difference here of what is the difference between the protest and the First Amendment and violating the First Amendment, violating people's rights. And, I want to pull up something. I know you guys won't be able to see it because I forgot to put my monitor here with you, but bear with me on that. Folks, I want to show you something that I think is important. This is from the ACLU. It's Know Your Rights, Free Speech, Protests, and Demonstrations. So you can look it up for yourself. And in this, I'm going straight to civil disobedience on campus, and it's under the civil disobedience at public universities. So you can look this up for yourself. But what does the ACLU have to say about this? There's 3 principles to remember, and I'm quoting their page if you're just listening to this. Conduct, not content. It's not what you say, it's the way that you say it. Your right to express your opinion is protected no matter what beliefs you hold. What matters is how you use that right. If you organize a protest that causes serious disruption, the government may be able to intervene. But with a few notable exceptions, nobody can restrict your rights simply because they don't like what you say. Second point that the ACLU is making: young or old, free speech is for everyone. Young or old, anarchist or evangelical, pacifist or hawk, Mormon or Muslim, these rights apply to you. That's pretty straightforward. Third point they make: when, where, and how. Consider when, where, and how you use your free speech rights. If you organize a rally that causes violence or unnecessary disruption, your event may be disbanded. Every municipality has regulations, and it's your responsibility to understand them. You must observe reasonable regulations on time, place, and manner when you exercise your rights to demonstrate and protest. Okay, and that's from the ACLU. I think it's pretty clear what we have seen in college campuses across the nation, and most recently at Binghamton University. That's not plot. They violate serious disruptions, totally intent on, and we know this because of their text, because of the letters they have put out, that they had every intention to cause disruption, chaos, intimidation, harassment.
No, absolutely.
I mean, it's a big difference when you are deliberately shutting down free speech, and you make a good point. That's not a protest. When you look at all the famous protests of the past, none of them went out of their way to shut down the speech of the other. They don't go out of their way and say, I'm going to say what I want to say, and you're not allowed to say what you want to say. It's the other way around. It's I'm going to say what I want to say, and then you can rebut that. This is totally the opposite. This is not that at all.
Yeah, I think of Dr. Martin Luther King. I didn't see Dr. Martin Luther King and his protesters and his supporters going out there and saying, you got to shut down the Ku Klux Klan, you got to shut down the Democratic body and not let them speak. No, he was out there, let's peacefully march, and say we disagree. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. He didn't go out there and say, oh, you can't speak about this. He says, I'm going to have a hunger strike. I don't believe in this. Let's protest. Because, yes, you can have your voice, but I'm going to have mine as well. Look at the great leaders of the modern history. They weren't out there saying, you can't speak, we're going to suppress you, you don't have a voice. They're saying, no, have your voice, but I have one too. Big difference.
Yeah, that's the point. We had no voice there. I mean, when that event exploded, it was just the craziest thing. I mean, they were all sitting there screaming, free speech, free speech. Well, what about us? What about the speaker?
Yeah, and for people who didn't know, and if you look at the video that's very popular across the nation about the event, you were sitting in the first row.
I was in the first row, and that all erupted directly behind me.
Yeah, you were about 1.5 feet away from this kid standing up on top of tables with people surrounding him to prevent police from stopping him from disrupting the event. And God forbid, they could have hurt you.
Well, I definitely could have been hurt. And the other thing is, too, is God forbid if one of those tables would have let go, broken or anything like that, I mean, how many people would have been hurt?
Yeah, and how much chaos would that be an inciting incident to cause even more violence?
And on top of that, a lot of people didn't see the footage that happened afterwards in the hallway trying to get out of that place. I'm telling you, that place was a powder keg.
Yeah. Well, I should report and mention that 2 people were arrested in this event. That we're talking about the Monday event. 2 people were arrested at Binghamton University, as reported by Syracuse.com. What I can say, in addition to that, that was the person who was speaking with the bullhorn, if you're looking at the videos of the event, and there was another individual who was blocking the police and stopping them from removing that protester with the bullhorn, or that antagonist, apparently a plot member who was making his comment. I do know from the university, in speaking to Ryan Yarosh 2 days ago, I spoke with him directly in reference to the event. And I found out from Ryan Yarosh that one of the individuals, I believe the one with the bullhorn, was a student of Binghamton University. The other person is a non-student who was involved in this. That makes a little bit of a difference.
A big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because this isn't about the organization of students speaking up. No, this is, as we understand, and based on the written documents from Plot, this was them.
And yeah, I find it really funny that a lot of people are not trying to attribute this to Plot. They're saying, oh, we couldn't find parking, we couldn't get in. There were so many people that were wearing Plot sweatshirts in there. I mean, do you not have eyes?
Well,
what about the people that had the masks on with the red armbands?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see, and for people who want to see the progressive leaders of tomorrow, otherwise known as Plot, their Binghamton organization, yeah, they are out there trying to say that, well, it was a victory for them, that this was something they wanted to do, but at the same time that they're not responsible, even though there has been email evidence, which I've presented in other videos, saying, yeah, this was their action. They were planning this. This was them. At the same time, they're claiming victory for something that they're saying they didn't have anything to do with. Their members, including Masai, a gentleman who was already arrested in Binghamton in the southern tier for disrupting the public and intimidating the public on Columbus Day. He was there organizing people before and after the event on Monday with Dr. Laffer. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. It's designed with your people. It's organized by your people. Your people are there. It goes off in the same manner that you and Antifa use. But no, it's not you.
No.
That's ridiculous. Okay. And I know I'm harping on this a little bit, but I think it's important.
It is important. And, what I don't understand is why they were hammering against Dr. Laffer. We had the opportunity to have lunch with him earlier in the day. And first off, he's a very down to earth gentleman. I mean, great to talk to. And he's very non political. I mean, he can give you examples of things that have happened in government all the way back to Richard Nixon. Why wouldn't you want to listen to this guy?
Yeah.
Let me ask, because there's consequences to this. And that's one of the reasons why I'm still talking about it, why I think it's important, even as it dies off in the mainstream media a bit. This is still having real world impact on the Southern Tier, Binghamton University, SUNY Broome, and the everyday people walking around who are not students. This is really going to affect people for a long time.
Well, one thing I want to make mention of, the economic students and the political science students lost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually ask Dr. Laffer questions and listen to him directly.
Yeah, an individual. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's such a shame that plot would take that opportunity away from students. I mean, and again, he's a totally apolitical guy. He's an economic genius, and it's a real shame that we didn't get to listen to him.
And I mean, historically, right now, he was at the White House when the impeachment inquiry was going on with Nixon, with Clinton, with the Iran-Contra, with Ronald Reagan, and now with Donald Trump. Why? I don't understand why they shut him down.
Well, exactly. There's a wealth of information about economics that we would love to hear about that are important. And isn't that what students go to school for? To learn about what's going on and to find out more insight. And whether you agree with it or disagree with it, at least you have more knowledge.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
One would think.
Yeah, we would think that's what it's about.
I mean, even my political science professor even mentioned that, if you go, because she gave extra credit for anybody that would have went to that event and wrote a report about it so they could hear the conservative side of economics. I mean, it was set perfectly for any student.
And that's at SUNY Broome.
Yes, that's at SUNY Broome.
Okay. But the consequences go way, way further than all of this. Part of the consequences are the Thursday protest incident by plot against the Broome County legislature. Part of it is what we're seeing with the state assembly in New York. Part of it is funding. Part of it is the economy of the Southern Tier of New York, which is already in trouble. Part of it is the lack of comment by elected officials across the state that people are noticing. The impact of the students that may or may not be coming back to Binghamton University out of fear, and the 2020 election. I mean, these are all consequences. This is why we need to speak about it, because this doesn't end with Dr. Laffer. It doesn't end with the university's punishment of the college Republicans. And I want to get into all of those things. I'm going to show people who are watching the show right now, real quick. This is on screen a letter from the Assembly of the State of New York with over a dozen signatures, which includes Assemblyman Cliff Crouch, who's on the 122nd Assembly District. It was from Doug Smith. And in here, this is a letter to Dr. Harvey Singer, the president of the University of Binghamton, asking him to do something about this hyper-violent, hyper-partisan environment that has now enveloped the state of Binghamton University. And I'm showing some of the signatures here. You can read the document yourself. It's on Assemblyman Doug Smith's Facebook page. And so, have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read the letter.
Okay. Do you think Assemblyman Doug Smith is right, wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree with him? Okay. And in essence, he's saying we can't allow this to continue, that this is a problem because it's going to harm students. I have to ask, John, you've been in Binghamton University, you're a student there. What's the atmosphere? How are students reacting to this? Yourself and others?
I mean, to everything that's going on, it to the average person, I would say it went away, and I think that's really sad. Because to the average non-political person, this has totally dropped out of the back of their mind. It's back to the normal. It's back to what am I doing on Friday? What am I doing on Saturday? It's the fact that they forgot about this. I think it's kind of sad because this is very important. This is a leftist mob trying to control your right to free speech. And we should focus on that a lot more. And now with the leftists, with the progressives on campus, they remember us. They point us out. They talk about us still. So things are still relatively tense, I would say.
I know you've experienced some threats, and I'm going to answer you in a second, Mike, but you've gotten some threats about this.
Yeah.
You and a bunch of students have been threatened physically. Mm-hmm. And so imagine if you were black. Imagine if you were Hispanic or a woman like Lacey Kessinger, the president of Turning Point USA. She's been threatened. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the progressive will let that go? That how can any student who's a conservative who thinks, well, I'm all by myself, yeah, and you're being targeted, isolated by progressives who are willing to threaten you?
Yeah, I am being targeted, and you make a fantastic point. If I wasn't a straight white male, things would be interpreted differently. But unfortunately, we live in a society where that kind of just goes by the wayside. It's totally fine that I'm being threatened.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, in my experiences over at Broome, I mean, Broome has been very supportive of all the efforts that we've tried to do over there. I haven't gotten any type of threats at all ever.
As the
founder of the club, when I was president of the club, I've never received any threats. This is the first time I've ever seen anything at this caliber. I mean, it was crazy. So now the one thing I have heard from students is they were very disappointed that they weren't able to hear Dr. Laffer actually talk.
Well, see, I think it gets so much bigger because I see the consequences. Like I said, there's the present threat from the left, from organizations like Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Citizen Action, Antifa, the fringe left. And I've heard people say, well, Mike, there isn't Antifa here. Yes, there is. There is a cell. You can look it up on Facebook. You can look it up on Twitter. You can see they have a cell here. They are in central New York, and they have been for several years. Does this make them grow? Does this encourage them to keep going forward because they keep having these events and they think they can manipulate people, threaten and fearmonger them? Is this going to affect average citizens walking down the street? Because I can tell you it already is. It already is, because if the student population drops, whether it's at SUNY Broome or SUNY Binghamton, that's going to affect the local economy. People will lose their jobs. People are going to be forced to move away. That's a problem. And let's think about it. Considering what we've seen from Assemblyman Doug Smith, Cliff Crouch, and so many others, and including President Trump. Let's remember, President Trump this year had put out, as NPR is reporting, they were speaking about the March 21st signing by executive order by President Trump that tied free speech and federal research monies going to colleges. And that means that Binghamton University could be in danger of losing money.
Oh, they could be, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of their funding, because since obviously their reaction was, the reaction of the university was, the very first thing they decided to do was they said, okay, the conservatives were at fault. And they blamed the conservatives, as we can see from WBNG.
Oh, of course.
Which I'm showing on screen. And so they blamed the conservatives. They tried to shut down conservative speech. They blocked you guys now. Is that right? From being able to do...
Yeah, no, we can't get rooms anymore. We can't check out rooms and meet on campus.
So they've silenced you.
We've totally been barred, yeah.
Okay, so they censored you.
Yeah, essentially. For doing a free speech event.
So you were trying to do free speech, trying to have free speech events, and the university's reaction is, okay, we're going to silence you from now on.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And do you think President Trump might have something to say about it? Do you think his executive order might apply, which could mean millions of dollars? Plus, the assembly is upset about this, which could mean millions of dollars. Students are going to be affected. Yeah, I think that affects everyone. This is important to resolve this. What about at SUNY Broome?
No, we have absolutely no problems there. We just have to follow the guidelines. I was told as long as we follow the guidelines set forward by SUNY Broome, we'll be fine.
Okay.
Which is we have to put requests in for tabling events or
Let
anything
me
of
ask you
that
something.
nature.
Does anyone ever table at SUNY Broome without a permit,
Not that I'm aware of.
with or without permission?
Not that I'm aware of.
Would it make a difference?
It could, and the reason why it could is they want to know that you're there. They want to know what you're doing, and then if there needs to be any security protocols,
Who's they?
that would be student affairs.
Okay. But if I went down in SUNY Broome and I had a sign and said, hey, I believe in the Second Amendment. What's that? Does that need to be approved? To your knowledge, obviously.
To my knowledge, I can't really answer that question because I don't know.
Okay. And that's interesting because people don't know. What is a comment? And I think it's free speech. And on universities, in public ways, and again, going back to the ACLU, the answer is if you're not disturbing anyone in the walkways, and again, folks, if you're wondering where am I getting that, why am I saying the ACLU said that? Let me show you what they said. According to the ACLU, that if you're going out there and you're not threatening anyone, you're not disturbing anyone, you're not blocking anyone's movements and access, their ability to live their life, guess what? You're okay. That's free speech, college campus or otherwise. Now, let's talk about Thursday.
Yeah, sure.
Because again, there are consequences. We saw 2 weeks ago Thursday, 200 left-leaning, at least, students were called together by a text organized to harass 3 students because they were expressing their freedom. Monday comes and Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, and other fringe left-leaning progressives decided to shut down free speech and attack, literally it's an attack on the freedoms of anyone who didn't agree with them, to silence their voices, took over the university. In fact, I know it went so far as, thank you for that. I'm so happy. They went even so far as to have the Vestal police force was called to Binghamton University to try and help resolve the situation. And in effect, what happened at the same time is Binghamton University called them off, told them not to show up. I don't know who gave that order. I don't know why they gave that order to allow the chaos to continue. And when I asked Ryan Yarosh, who speaks for Binghamton University's police and media, who gave that order, he asked me, why do you need to know that? When I asked him, when was that order given and what was the reason for that order to stop other police agencies from helping out to maintain law and order, his answer was, well, I don't know, and I don't know why that's important. Scares me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That scares me.
That is scary because the amount of emotions that was going on in that crowd, God forbid, if there would have been, say, an opposing force, being whoever, okay, if there would have been a group of students that were very upset about this and they wanted to fight about it, it would have been Portland.
Well, that's my concern, is that this may turn into Portland, because then we see Thursday.
Yeah.
So you had 2 weeks ago, 200 individuals, left-leaning, attacked 3 people on purpose for the goal of disrupting them. Monday comes, you have a couple of hundred individuals, plot members, coming out to disrupt and silence free speech. Nearly gets violent. Then Thursday comes. You were there, John. Were you there as well, Mike?
Which one was this one?
Thursday with the Broome County Legislature.
No, I couldn't make
You were
it.
there, John.
Yes, I was.
Okay, firsthand, what did you see? What happened?
Well, I saw the exact same thing that I saw on the previous Thursday and on Monday. It was plot organizing to disrupt an event. They showed up and they filled the room. They were doing the same exact chants as before. They were saying the same things. They were making the same talking points, and they just disrupted the meeting. They didn't. The meeting lasted, I think, an hour and a half. It was supposed to be 20 minutes. It didn't even get started because they were chanting and they were screaming and they were doing all of the same nonsense that they've been doing on Monday and on that previous Thursday.
Okay. By the way, folks, remember, you can call in at 607-242-1582, or you can text us at that line. You can send us messages on YouTube and on Facebook. We are trying to pay attention to all of that, and we will get to people. And by the way, I've seen many comments on YouTube, on Facebook. I've seen many comments that have come into the call line even after the show is over, where people have been very supportive of what's been going on for the students and for conservatives in general. Again, you're not alone out there if you are a conservative, if you're a Republican, whether you're black, you're a student, you're a woman. People support you. Matter of fact, I see in the community, there is a massive backlash against Plot and what they're doing here because people don't agree. This isn't freedom. This isn't right. With that being said, there we go. Forgot to put in my background in there. With that being said, looking at Thursday's event, was it out of control? Were they? What happened with that?
Yeah. It was when I stepped into the room, Plot had already gotten there. They already packed the room. There were no more seats left, and there's a lot of people standing. A lot more people than there were chairs. When I got in there, they had a lot of signs up, and the signs had names on them, and I guess date of death, and they were all representative of people that have died in local prisons, I'm assuming. And they had one guy in the middle, and he was doing this long speech about the quality of prisons, I think, is what he was getting at.
Right.
And how they can't pass this law. They shouldn't pass this law. It's a terrible law. And then after that was done, then they had an announcement. They said, all right, we have more room outside. Outside of the room, we have more chairs. We need one person per chair. It is the fire code. We cannot have people standing without chairs. I was the only person in that room to walk out and get a chair. Everyone else stayed. They said, don't oppress us. They said, we don't care what the rules are. We're going to stand here. You are oppressing us by making us leave this room.
So they endangered themselves.
Yeah. They were breaking the fire. They're breaking a basic fire code. They knew what the rules were, and they were just totally denying their exit. And they had to call in more security. They had to call in a police force, and that's when things started to get ugly.
And when you say ugly,
there were a lot of people getting arrested. They were chanting. I think the legislators just left the room at one point.
I know that. Yeah, that's been reported. They did.
They left the room because they weren't allowed to continue. Right? It just turned into a rally. It turned into the same thing that happened on Monday.
Silence and suppressed.
Silence suppression. They weren't allowed to do their legislative duties. The job that they were sworn into, the job they were elected for, they weren't allowed to continue that job because what? A bunch of protesters were chanting, "No justice, no peace." They were chanting, "We have nothing to lose but our chains." And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that is just a straight up communist chant.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been used by a lot of groups. But I find it interesting because how much money did it cost taxpayers?
Yeah, exactly.
And how many people were, how many other actions across Broome County, the New York 22nd District, Central New York, were unattended because these guys were out there. We had to protect our law enforcement, to protect the general population there, to make sure that this unruly mob didn't lose their minds and go completely ballistic, which they seem to be escalating towards. And one of my concerns in speaking about all this is we have to stop this before it escalates.
I totally agree with that, and that's my fear. Is when is violence going to come in? Because it's coming.
I hope not, but I know 2020 is going to be,
Makes two of us.
well, 2020 is going to be hyper emotional. And these guys live off of, apparently, they're all about emotion. Radical, unbridled, uncontrolled emotion. And silencing people. Well, during an election where you're going to be talking about president, you're going to be talking about Congress, you're going to be talking about upper level state elections, there's going to be a lot of emotion. There are going to be a lot of people who are passionate, a lot of people who are going to speak, and they want to silence people who speak. That is a bad mix. And that's
absolutely
not going to help freedom and people being able to make a choice. Does that mean that we're going to have more voter suppression? That we're going to have, and I'm talking about from the left, they're suppressing votes by turning people away, turning them off, denying them the opportunity to learn more information because they're only out there to have one voice, one thought, and if you don't like it, they're coming after you. That is not American.
Well, if you're at a legislation meeting and you're going to vote on a bill that's going to stop this kind of nonsense, okay? Them screaming at you is, I mean, that's going to lock the vote in. Why don't they start a dialogue and actually talk to people?
Yeah, and that's what they started off with. They started off with a speech. They started off with something that was at least relatively convincing. They were totally speaking in calm tone. Mm-hmm. They were laying out what their points were, but then once their time was up, it started to become chaos again. And that's the problem. They don't know how to argue their points right. They did it for about 2 minutes, and then it devolved right back into the same chaos that led us to consider this bill in the first place.
So 2 minutes, and then, hey, now that we're done speaking, no one else can speak.
Oh, we don't have the floor anymore? Okay, back to chanting.
Right.
Yeah.
No one else can talk. No other voice can be out there because we've said what we wanted to say, and no one else gets to say anything.
Of course.
That's a problem.
Well, that was like at Binghamton University with Dr. Laffer. I mean, John stood up and he said, protesters, I'm glad you're here. You'll be welcome to ask any questions after the speech is over. And they didn't want to do that. They just immediately blew into it.
Which John?
Rastusha.
Rastusha.
There we go.
You're horrible with names.
I am horrible with names.
John Rastusha, who is the president of the Binghamton College Republicans. So an opportunity, again, was extended to these individuals to be able to have their voice as well as everyone else. And their answer was, no, you can't have another voice.
No.
They're the only ones.
No, we're the ones that talk. You don't talk.
I find it troubling because I see this is an environment that leads to so many other things. Because I think this is very much connected to, I don't know if you guys heard about, last night, there was a supposed red flag action that happened.
I didn't hear about that.
No?
Yeah. The news media wasn't talking about this. It was in Putnam County. It was a standoff between police and a former Afghanistan veteran for 7 hours, where, according to social media, there was a lot of belief that this was based off of a red flag action because he has a 30-round magazine. Lately, the Putnam police have come out and said, or the Putnam Sheriff's Office has said, that no, this was about domestic abuse, and they came out with a litany of crimes, which they didn't mention during the entire standoff. But we have dozens of people who've said that this was about red flag or possibly SAFE Act, but there was a total shutdown of the news media. No one wanted to talk about this. No one covered this in the major news media. The only channel I know of that did so was Spectrum News 12, and they only did it after the fact. And the question remains, what's the truth?
Yeah, what is the truth? Is it over a 30-round magazine, or did he knock his wife around?
Well, apparently his wife didn't put in the domestic abuse claim. As I understand it, again, lots of shadows, lots of lack of information, but it heightened. And the fact is that hundreds of organizations, Second Amendment advocates, suddenly came together and said, wait a minute, we need more information. If this is about the red flag, we oppose that. We want to protest that. The police under the guidance of the law, weren't saying anything. The news media denied the public any real information. Still, to this day, to this moment, nothing is very clear here. There's a lot of questions. And that environment goes into this environment.
Yeah, I think in that story particularly, the lack of information and the lack of coverage by the media, it really sends the picture to what the larger image is of the whole system. Because this whole democracy thing is only going to work if we are open and we are honest with each other and information is flowing back and forth. If there's a total shutdown and a total lockdown of what we can see and what we can hear, this thing is not going to work. It's going to be tyranny.
The free speech is not just about what you like.
Of course.
It's about we need information.
So
the
what the
public
facts
is we should have the facts. We can then agree or disagree on that, but if we're following the plot mentality of silencing people, of not allowing news to come out, of trying to manipulate the news, and not allowing any other voice to come out there we got a problem.
Yeah.
And that problem just escalates. It gets worse. So I know we're going back and forth on this. Have either of you heard anything from either Governor Cuomo, Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, Councilman Conrad Taylor, County Executive Jason Garnar, Representative Anthony Brindisi? Have you heard anything from them?
No, I haven't.
Zero.
Okay. Because I know Bob McManus, who is the former editor of the New York Post, has made comments on November 20th about the disgrace of the silence of Governor Cuomo not speaking about Binghamton University, though he's talked about a far lesser incident at Syracuse University.
Yeah, that was directly afterwards, too.
Yeah.
Talk about timing.
After fact. And says nothing about Binghamton University. I know Councilman Conrad Taylor was at and was part of the actual protest, the inciting incident, the 200 progressives versus 3 conservatives at Binghamton University. He was part of that mob, and then he has tweeted in reference, in support of that mob, on a mistaken, inaccurate reasoning, which I have proven and shown before. I know Assemblywoman Donna Pardo, absolutely silent. County Executive Jason Garnar, absolutely silent. Representative Anthony Brindisi, absolutely silent. Guess what? These are all people, this is their district. Binghamton University, SUNY Broome, this is all their district. Not one of them, every single one of them are Democrats. Not one of them has said a word about this. How does that make you guys feel? As students and as members of the community?
Actually, a little upset because we are also their constituents, and they need to protect us as well.
Yeah, I mean this doesn't just go one way. You don't just reach out when it's your people. Everyone that's in this area, you are responsible for. And the fact that Fox News has picked this up and they have talked about it twice, and our state governor has not talked about it once, and none of our local representatives, this is a huge story. Local representatives have not talked about this once in public. And even if it is to denounce us, they don't talk about it because they know it makes them look bad.
Well, they're not talking about it. It makes me wonder, do they agree with it?
Of course.
That's a really, I've asked that question.
Because does the silence equal, I agree with this?
Well, we know for Councilman Taylor, it does. He has actually come out and said that he supports the actions of a mob surrounding 3 people to silence them. He has said that.
Wow.
That's, and I'm paraphrasing his words here. I want to be clear, but I have shown his tweets, his Twitter account. Matter of fact, I have it up here, and I'll show people exactly what I'm talking about. This is from Conrad Taylor's Twitter page on November 14th, where he is standing there and he is saying that he is in support of this, that young people spoke up and told conservatives where to shove it. He's part of the crowd. He doesn't admit that he's part of that mob and that he misrepresented what was going on. So yeah, I take that as that is his support of this action. So that's very clear. So I want to be very clear. I'm not just making that up. That's what he said.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things here. It's either they support it, which we were just talking about, But the second option is that they don't want to talk about it because they're too scared of what the backlash will be from either their voters or their party, and that's equally scary.
Partisanship.
Right, yeah, because if their party and if this wing of the party has so much influence over all politicians, there's really no limit to what they can do. You know, they can do things legislatively that will hurt us.
Yeah, they'll take over and pass laws and block funding for things that would actually promote free speech.
And these representatives will support it because they don't want the backlash and they don't want the consequences of not following what the progressives want.
Yeah, that troubles me.
Yeah.
Let me ask, we've got about 12 minutes here or so. Let's talk about something a little different. Because conservative standing tall is about unity. We're talking about a lot of things that, okay, this is what happened. This is the atmosphere. This is the environment we find ourselves in right now. We see that this kind of environment is helping to create things like red flag laws, where due process is removed. We're seeing this possibly affecting the economy of large communities of people far outside just a college. This isn't just a college university thing. This is a community thing. I know that I have spoken to many people and I have seen the comments over and over again. The public supports the college Republicans. The public supports the conservative view that you guys have done the right thing and have been oppressed. I've heard from a couple of the radicals in the community, because I speak to everyone, and they've told me, well, Mike, Plot's right, because, we don't like the other thought. But everyone else, I've talked to independents, libertarians, conservatives, Republicans, people who don't follow politics at all, they're following this. They agree with you.
Yeah.
How have you guys heard back on the college campus? Is this making more conservatives say, hey, I got to get involved? Is this making more people tell you, you know what, I got to stay away, I don't want to talk about it? What are you seeing as a result?
A lot of people are very disappointed in their behavior.
That's at SUNY Broome.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Yeah, and at Binghamton and from people outside of Binghamton that have reached out, it's only been positive. And I think that's really showing to what the situation truly is. It's a very vocal, a very loud minority of the population that is trying to oppress the free speech of the rest of us. I have had people that say, I don't agree with you, but I support your right to free speech. People that agree with me, of course, I agree with you and I support your right to free speech. And everything in between. People want us to talk. People want us to say what's on our mind because they expect us to do the same for them, which we will. And that is the way that things have always been, and that is the way that things should be.
Yeah. I believe there's been increases in the number of students who have joined conservative.
Yes, there has been.
Oh, yeah.
As a reaction to this.
Well, another comment I want to make also, on conversations that I've had over the years, people that are on the other side, on the left, that actually want to have a dialogue and talk to me and debate with me, I've learned a lot from them. Some I don't agree with, and so on and so forth. But still, I think conversation here is really the point that we need to make. People need to start talking to each other, not screaming at each other.
Well, yeah. And I can tell you that I have yet to receive a comment, a letter, an email, a text from Plot or its members the ones that I know of, or any of their organizations, the Fringe, Citizen Action, Indivisible New York, all these splinter groups that are essentially made up of all the same people.
Yeah.
None of them have sent me a single thing that says, oh, and here are the points why you're wrong. Not one of them is willing to come on and say, hey, I'll come on live and give all the reasons why I think this is a good thing to silence other people. They haven't come out and said, hey, here's the community where the community is saying this is the best thing possible to silence people, to damage the economy, long-term and short-term, of this community. Not one of them. And they're welcome to call in and try and explain this. We're not hearing anything from them. That makes me very interested. I think the fact that the community has come forward, stood tall, that they believe in the conservative viewpoint, that they're willing to say, okay, I'm going to back the conservative Republican viewpoint, at least on this issue, if not more, that says plot, the fringe left, they're losing. And more importantly, they're losing because they're against freedom, and people are recognizing that. And this is why we stand as conservatives together. Because the more we stand together, the more freedom everyone gets, the better the community is, even for those who disagree with us.
Well, I guess the only question that I would have, and this probably won't be popular, but it is what it is. I mean, they shut down the Columbus Day Parade over the jail. Mm-hmm. What I heard over at the Dr. Laffer event was about incarcerations. Okay, and then obviously John just mentioned that he heard it in the county legislature as well. Well, if people dying in the jails and the incarcerations and everything else, I'd like to have them bring up some reports of why these people died, if that's the case. I mean, was the jail actually at fault for these people dying?
I can answer that already because the DA candidates before the election and since then have been involved in that. Investigations have been ongoing. So far, no, the jail has not been found to have been deficient. Now, does that mean it's perfect? No. Can improvements be made? Absolutely. But was this some kind of hit squad, death squad? No.
I wouldn't think so.
Which is what they allege, but that's not the case.
Yeah, that's how they operate. They tell you half the story, and then they draw conclusions on only that.
Yeah, and the bigger problem is, why are people being arrested? They want to focus on, well, we have to treat people really nice and we got to release them with bail reform and put the criminals back out onto the street. We have to make their lives really comfortable when they go to jail because they broke the law. My thing is, when they broke the law, how about we stop them from breaking the law? Let's create jobs. Give people a purpose in life so that they don't go on to drugs, that they're not out there trying to get heroin.
Yeah, we need more jobs here so people actually have an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working a job, you're responsible, you're living a good life, you're able to spend money, you're not really interested in trying to get heroin and overdose and commit crimes for it. You're not trying to commit prostitution to get more drugs. You're not going to jail.
Yeah.
How about we deal with the root cause, which is, why are people committing crime? Let's fix the crime, which in part means lower taxes, it means more jobs, it means more opportunity based on the equality of opportunity, not the equality of the outcome. If we focus on those things, which are conservative values, which help everyone.
Yes, absolutely. If we could just get a better economy here so everybody had an opportunity to get a job, not get into God only knows what. I mean, I can just imagine how many people are harmed. You hear about the overdoses all the time. How do we fix that?
Well, we start with, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, as conservatives, we speak up.
Yeah.
We say, hey, we're going to pass better laws that'll give people more opportunity, because if we lower the taxes, if we create more jobs, if we stop giving money to companies like Amazon and maybe work with the small businesses that are in our community, more people are able to grow, more people are able to be employed, to do better, go to college, and live better lives, stay in their communities because there's opportunity and there's not oppression from leftist groups, and then everyone gets to have a better life. I think is it an instant quick fix, feel good kind of thing? No.
Well, that was just like when I was on the campaign trail this past city council election. I actually had somebody screaming at me, asking me, are you on our side or on their side? Well, why do I have to pick a side, number one?
Yeah.
And give me your facts of why I need to be on either side.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not doing. They're not giving any facts. Okay, why, if somebody was killed in the jail per se, if they were killed by the jail, pardon me, okay, where are the facts? Where's the autopsy report? Where's the toxicology report?
Well, so far those have been done, and nothing has been shown to conclusively say that this was a active intent.
Yeah.
You know.
And back to the way to fix it. I mean, you brought up the way that we should fix it, but let's think about for a second what their suggestion is. Their suggestion is to just let people out of jail. That's how you get less people in jail. You just let them out of jail. Okay, yeah, simple enough. You're putting a lot of criminals on the street. They're in jail for a reason. And now the way that you suggested, you lower taxes, you give people opportunity, you give them purpose in life. That is the problem. Letting them out of jail will only put the problem back on the streets. It doesn't fix why they're in there in the first place.
Yeah.
It is what you said. It is a quick, feel-good solution instead of a long-term viable solution.
Which makes a big difference.
Yes.
You know what? If there are students on college campuses that haven't heard about this, that aren't aware, how do they reach out to you guys to realize and have a conversation and realize you're not alone, that there are a lot of people that do in fact support you, that do in fact believe what you believe, that do in fact want to help their community long term? How do they reach out to you guys?
Well, they can email me at SUNY-BROWN-Republicans at gmail.com.
And with the College Republicans at Binghamton, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Twitter, and then individually, we're on Facebook too, and individually, you could email me, jlezak1 at binghamton.edu if you'd like. You could also find us on Facebook, John Lezak. You could message me on Facebook. Any way is fine. We'll get back to you.
We are also on Facebook at SUNY-BROWN-Republicans on Facebook.
Okay. And I know that, of course, folks, there are always the opportunity. We have info at Voss Consult for an email. There's obviously us on Facebook under the Voss Political Commentary. You can find me on Twitter at MV Consult. You can also leave messages here, a text at 607-242-1582. So you can leave a comment there. You can always call in, leave a voicemail as well. We respond to every comment that we can, as much as we can, as soon as we can. But this is interesting. And we're having these conversations that I think coming up, some of the most interesting things to talk about. Obviously, we have 2020. We have the congressional race. That's going to be very important. A lot of issues are up for grabs there. And that's going to make a big impact in our community because obviously Anthony Brindisi, our current congressman, who won't speak about freedom of speech, who hasn't had bills supported by his own Democratic Party, is going to be challenged by Republicans. We're going to see the state Senate seat, the Assembly seat, which Donna Lupardo is in, and she won't speak about this. They're going to be up for election. We have the presidential race. Of course, that's important. These are things that are coming up. The red flag, obviously, is now another question that has come up that we need to address. Its impact. How is it going to affect everyone? We got to talk about that. I think that on campus and in the community, these are things that are going to be really big. And, we'll keep going Sunday after Sunday talking about this. And definitely, guys, let me hear what you guys are hearing from other students, from other conservatives, young conservatives, because you guys are the future. You may have the solutions. I'm old. I'm going to be gone sooner than most. Half a century in. I'm not living another 50 years here. I'm not going to have all the solutions, but you will.
Well, you're not much older than I am, so don't put us both into the home.
I am young.
Yes, you are. But we want to hear from more of everybody, and we hope that this show will grow in talking about the conservatives standing tall. It's going to be getting its own audio podcast page, and so you'll be able to hear this as a audio podcast, and we'll be talking about that more. But with that said, I think we've had a very good show.
Absolutely, yes.
Anything I missed or we missed altogether?
No, I think you hit everything that's relevant to today.
Yeah, the only thing, and maybe we can talk about this next week, is I'd like to go over some of the things with this bill if it passes, especially this Thursday. With the with the police bill, and then also I think we need to really cover bail reform and how it's going to affect society.
Well, I definitely feel I would love to hear how some of the students, and maybe they can come in or they can call in and tell us what they think about bail reform and what the consequences are. It's a great question. But with that said, we're going to end the show here. In about half an hour, I'm going to be coming back to speak for No Soundbites Allowed, specifically talking about Eric Goss, who is the CEO of Minnow, which is a Christian-based channel that's competing with Disney Plus. And he's going to be speaking with us a little bit about what he thinks is going on. I'll be talking a little bit more about the red flag situation in New York. So we'll talk about that. So in half an hour, come on back, folks, and we'll talk more about that. But until then, I want you to have a great week. We all, as conservatives, are standing together. We're standing tall. We are having a great time speaking with you, and we look forward to all of your comments. Guys, thank you for being here with me today on Sunday. We're going to be back. This is their program, not mine. I'm just used to doing this. But we're going to be back next week, and we're going to hear from you. So people, speak up. Until then, everyone be well.